Hey there, Theresa here. So, have you ever seen a recipe on Instagram that looked so simple until you actually tried it? Well, that was me trying to make these rice paper veggie pockets. I totally thought I had it under control because I'd worked with the ingredients before. I'm a decent cook. But I gotta tell you, by the time I was done with these things, it looked like a full blown episode of Nailed It. And as I was cooking these, I was thinking to myself, this is so much like a technology implementation. I was struggling with ripped rice paper, soggy filling, pan that wouldn't cooperate. We don't want that for our implementations. So stick with me here for a couple of minutes and let's talk this one through. Step one, it should have been so simple making the filling. I threw everything into the food processor. I walked away for just a minute. I came back to this weird purple vegetable paste that was extremely aromatic, but definitely not appetizing looking. And it's not what I needed to make these rolls. And this is what happens in tech projects all the time. We think we'll just keep feeding all of our data into the system and it's just going to magically produce some insights for us. But if you don't have the right guardrails and the governance and the strategy, you're just going to overprocess everything. And it's going to leave you with this mess of useless information instead of actionable insights. Think about ChatGPT. How many times have you gone out there and just thrown in any prompt and you didn't get exactly what you wanted because you didn't take the time to think through all your prompting steps? It's the same thing. I try to be efficient, like we all do with everything in our lives right now because we're all so busy. I ended up taking those 6 rice papers and I started to soak them all at once. Well, that's a bad move because they turned into this huge, sticky mess. Some parts were too soft, other parts were like rock hard. And in tech implementations, that's what happens when we try to do everything at once. We say, let's implement AI and FHIR and governments. We're going to do it all at the same time, right? It sounds great, but in my experience, what I've seen is everything ends up being kind of tangled, half baked, and now you're just spending months trying to untangle workflows instead of moving forward. That tech implementation is like rice paper. It works best if you take it one step at a time. You need the right timing and structure, or you're going to be left pulling apart these pieces, just trying to salvage what you can. And that costs you money. And more importantly, it costs you trust on your teams. So let's get to cooking these wraps. I thought, I'm going to make it healthier. The instructions call for frying it in this much oil, and I just wanted it to be healthy. So I just spread a tiny little bit of oil in the pan. It's a nonstick pan. What could go wrong? Well, a lot. As I was trying to turn them over, they kept breaking and splitting apart because the rice paper, if you've ever worked with it, is super sticky. And so they would stick together and I'd pull them apart. And then they would slide across the pan. They got soggy, they never got crispy. The whole thing fell apart. And this is what happens when we ignore best practices, when we don't follow the recipes for implementations, especially when it comes to interoperability and AI. And instead of following our proven models like IGs or following what the vendor's telling us that we might need to do because our systems are so special, we try to figure it out on our own. And then we wonder why nothing is working and why we are left with this kind of sticky, broken mess instead of a smooth running system. So by the time I was done, those rice paper veggie pockets looked nothing like the Instagram version. In tech implementations, if we don't have that right approach, our AI, FHIR, whatever tech project that you're working on, it's not going to look like the success story that you imagined either. 3 tips I want to leave you with today. Know your guardrails. Don't let implementations run wild without some sort of structure. Pace your rollout. Don't try to do too much or try to do everything at one time because it will slow you down instead of speed you up. Number three, follow best practices. Sometimes taking shortcuts will lead to a bigger problem. So the next time that you're thinking about AI, FHIR, or any new healthcare tech that you want to implement, don't make the same mistakes I did in the kitchen. The right strategy is everything. And if you want to get that implementation right the first time, I've got two ways that I can help you. Number one, you can download my AI readiness checklist. Make sure that your organizations are starting to set themselves up for success. And number two, book a call with me and let's talk about your strategy together so that you can avoid these common pitfalls that I've already seen and have been through. Don't let your next implementation be like an episode of Nailed It. Get the right strategy from the start. Click below and let's make your tech work for you.